Washington, D.C. has one of the highest mortality rates from breast cancer. Wards 7 and 8 in D.C. have a considerably higher rate than D.C. as a whole. And the fact that 75% of the funds that we raise stays in Washington, D.C. for programs that help these dramatically underserved women. They're our neighbors. They desperately need our help.
Now, who says good things cannot happen in Washington, D.C.? That's proof positive of the good work done by the Susan G. Komen Foundation in our nation's capital. And, of course, that extends far beyond Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it extends all across the country.
Miranda Kahn there, J.D. Hayworth here, and with us on the anchor desk is the author of the book Promise Me, How a Sister's Love Launched the Global Movement to End Breast Cancer. That author, former Ambassador Nancy Brinker, here with us. Nancy, thanks and welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with both of you.
Well, the title sets it up, but could you take us to the personal situation that developed in your family and the promise you made?
Yeah, the year was 1978. My only sister, my older sister, Susan Komen, was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was 33. By 1980, she was gone. And it was a disease then that people didn't talk about out loud. And when we finally got her to the right care, it was too late. And in any event, right before she died, she asked me if I would do something to make sure that I could cure breast cancer, that it wouldn't happen to families and mothers and sisters and daughters and men, too. So I promised her I would if it took me the rest of my life. I thought I was very smart then and that I could get this done in about 5 years. And I realized through the decision made in grief and terror in a way, has taken the rest of my life. But yet I am so thrilled with the journey we're on now. And where we are.
And you've made it your life's mission, really. Now, you mentioned earlier that this was something that people really didn't talk about back then. And you addressed that stigma in your book.
Yeah, you couldn't use the word breast in most newspapers, certainly not on radio and TV in America in those days. And we had to talk about women's cancers. And there was a great stigma. People were terrified of this disease, as terrified of the treatment and facing mutilation. And so we had those major issues, and we were able to break through that fear by building Susan G. Komen, and also by understanding that there really was mammography in those days, and there were ways to give people confidence about care and treatment and discovering it early.
You said after making the promise, just a minute ago, you said that you thought that it'd take you about 5 years to get this done.
I thought I was so smart. I thought if we had a man on the moon, why couldn't we cure cancer? There was so much money in this country and will to do it. But very little science, I came to find out. And now what we have, just to flip it over, we have the most elegant, fabulous science in the world in America and not enough money to fund it.
So the unpleasant surprise is the time it has taken. Has anything surprised you in a pleasant way about this journey?
Yes. What has surprised me is the number of people in this country and globally who have come together under the banner of Susan G. Komen. When we started this journey, the survival rate of people with breast cancer, very early breast cancer, 5-year survival rate was only 74%. Today it's 99% in America. That doesn't mean we can catch all breast cancer early, and we're making astonishing gains in treating metastatic disease.
Nancy, you really can't go anywhere without seeing those pink ribbons, or pink anything now. We see everything supporting your organization. At the time, did you have any idea that it would blow up the way it did and help so many people?
I had big dreams, and I also had a lot of surprises along the way, but I had a background in marketing, and I just had the sense about me, just an instinct that if we could deliver conventional messages about this disease in non-scary ways, in unconventional ways, by having people talk about it, by blending it in with products and endorsements and using other people's marketing budgets, since we had no money, very little money, that we could create a movement, and that's indeed what happened. We didn't have faxes, computers, anything then in those days. I know it's hard to imagine, but that's how it was.
And yet the advent of the internet, because we just saw some screen captures from your websites. We saw earlier the video there. When we think about the pink ribbons, I think about a couple of things in terms of sports marketing. The NFL being involved.
Exactly.
And the other thing, as a proud Wolfpacker from NC State, I remember the late, great Kay Yao, who herself suffered from breast cancer, but very courageously and publicly fought that fight.
Right. It is still a very, very large disease. The death rate is still too high, but massive gains have been made, and the greatest thing that you'll see coming forward are all the new therapies and diagnostics and our ability to not only diagnose but treat this disease very early and very aggressively, turning it into a chronic disease, a manageable disease.
Manageable disease, that's a great concept. The one thing that we always try to conquer is managing our time. and we're going to step aside here, use of effective time management, and come back and talk more with the ambassador about her good works right after this as America's Forum continues.
You know, with all the bickering that goes on in Congress and whatnot, you wonder, so there's a lot of cancer drugs out there. The problem with them is, along with killing the cancer cells, you also kill the normal cells. So the name of the game is really specificity. And the problem was you need funding to follow up this work. So it's fair to say that this project wouldn't have happened without Komen.
With Miranda Kahn, J.D. Hayworth back with you on America's Forum. We just heard a researcher crediting the Susan G. Komen Foundation for making his research to fight breast cancer a positive one and getting it done.
Nancy, does that ever get old to hear that?
No, and like a lot of people who are founders, I once heard Marie Curie, not to compare myself, the two-time Nobel winner at the turn of the century, say, as an inventor or a founder, you never see what's been done. You only see what remains to be done. So I always look at what we have to do yet, and I don't study a lot of history because I'm just glad we're where we are, and that means we have to go to the next place.
Yeah, I know it's intensely personal, and you told us, Ambassador, the story of your sister before the break. If you could talk to your sister right now, what do you think she'd say about what's unfolded with the foundation?
I talk to my sister all the time, and I had breast cancer too 4 years after she died, and I was terrified that I would die, and I just can't tell you how much of the inspiration of her life. She was so young, so positive, and so wonderful, and sometimes when I get so darn frustrated, I want to quit. I'll just say, I can't do this anymore. Something will happen. Something will happen to turn the tide of whatever I'm working on. So I do believe in that.
You've
that
inspired a movement, though.
Yeah, we have. It's not, of course, just me. It's hundreds of thousands and millions of people.
No, but you've inspired them to join that, and thanks to you, you have made a lot of progress in your organization.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing some real exciting things in the next couple of years that are just going to hopefully bring us to a whole new level in diagnostics therapy and understanding how to really treat this disease in effective ways and cost-effective ways, which I hope will help turn the tide of how we even do healthcare in the United States, all over the world.
Nancy Brinker, we mentioned earlier, we can address you as ambassador because you served, Madam Ambassador, in the diplomatic corps in Hungary back in 2000. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, we saw our ambassador to South Korea stabbed in Seoul. We've had the horrible situation in Benghazi with the ambassador to that nation to Libya killed. Your assessment of what needs to happen in the diplomatic corps today to protect our personnel.
Yeah, and all the rest of our interview, I just want to state this. These are all my personal opinions. I'm representing only myself here and my experience. And look, it is a huge honor to be an ambassador of the United States. Just maybe somewhat over 1,000 people over history have been ambassadors. Right. So I looked at this as a service to my country. And the sadness and the fright of being attacked is scary. I was leaving for Hungary on 9/11. I was in the car going to the airport.
You must have been
And I had a dose, well, as everyone else in the country, I had a dose of real reality. If I actually got on that plane and was going into a war zone, and I said to myself that day, and I talked to my parents, and my father was a fierce patriot, and he said, "You're going no matter what. Just take care of yourself." And
wow.
We were detained from leaving for 10 days. But it was a serious talk I had to have with myself, going from a very safe and secure life into I didn't know what. And we didn't know. We kind of knew what was happening, who was attacking us, but just didn't have the real, insight into everything. And there is a risk you take as an ambassador. You're protected, but no one can ever protect you if somebody really has it out for you and really wants to get you or take you down.
Having said that, do you think more needs to be done
to
protect our ambassadors?
I do. But we have to engage. When an ambassador, American ambassador, is serving in a country, we have to make sure they're really being protected. Those require site visits. They require constant, oversight by our Department of State and by our intelligence agencies. Also, again, it's an appropriation, and so far there's always a lack of willingness to appropriate things sometimes for overseas service, and these are the most sometimes important relationships we can have as human beings with each other, on-site representatives of America.
Nancy, less than a minute 30 remains. We want to turn now to an op-ed that you wrote as an individual that appeared in the Miami Herald. And you talk about people, LGBT people, and fairness on the job. Can you encapsulate what you were writing in that op-ed?
Right. Well, you know, my son is gay, and it was a journey that I've taken with him. I can't say I was very enlightened always about people who are gay. And as I got friendlier with his friends and understood more about this entire movement, it seems to me not illogical to not let people be full members of a workforce, to not let them be productive rather than feeling like outsiders or outliers of a community. And the same with marriage. Committed relationships grow strong families and values. To make people feel they have to be promiscuous, in my opinion, my logical mind, is not a good thing. Therefore, I think the workforce effort being put forward is very important, and for this state particularly, the third largest state, it's every state, third largest state in the country, how can we exclude people for their gender? It just doesn't seem logical. It's not right.
About 15 seconds remain before we let you go. A word of congratulations as you're being inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. Sally Ride is there, so is the late, great Betty Ford.
My
really
mentor,
appreciate it.
Betty Ford.
She was a great lady.
Wonderful.